Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the True Church of Jesus Christ with this Latter-day Saint. And unfortunately, we are still stuck in this wheel of samsara. And it all happened because of the fall of grace. And I love going back to the garden all the way back. And hopefully in this talk, I'll get into the Bhagavad Gita, chapters 14 and 15. And we're going to have expert advice from our Spirit of Truth. So when he comes, however, verse 6, chapter, sorry, 16, John 16, verse 13. Getting way ahead of myself here. So being the Spirit of Truth, when he comes, he will guide you to all the truth. And he will not speak on his own, but he will speak only what he hears, and he will announce to you the things to come. So our dear friend, the Spirit of Truth here in the Bhagavad Gita, we'll still stick with John 14, verse 17, the Spirit of Truth, who the world cannot accept. The world cannot accept that matter, the tunic of flesh. See, man's true identity behind the tunic of flesh is the one consciousness, and it doesn't have a name. So when the Christ says, hallowed be thy name, that's exactly perfect. When men have encountered that, you could say like Mr. Musashi, it appears to them as a nothingness. So when Brother Paul encountered that, it was a light, but it did not have a form. And when this light spoke, other men could not hear. So that completes the mystery of the Tao. If you think you can hear it, well, it's something that's intangible and makes no sound. So that's what also Confucius says. When you hear the star, well, you hear the stars. Yeah, you don't hear the stars. Just like Mother Earth doesn't make a sound, so too the heavens do not make a sound. So that's also coming back into the silence here, following the way, following the pathway back to this one consciousness. So behind the wheel of life, man fell into darkness and death. And the contaminated mode that he has, because he believes in the tunic of flesh, he believes that he's a body and that he just identifies with the body, I, me, and my, and this world. His mind becomes on fire. So that's one of the religious principles that the Buddha gave to us. And when the mind is on fire with sense gratification, things of this nature here, it only gets involved or entangled with envy, hatred, and jealousy. Because man's fallen state, he's in darkness. So when he just thinks about himself and his own mind and how he wants to gratify his sense, I'll pull that up over here. It's more like the Three Stooges working. And in his fallen state, his thinking only focuses on the tunic of flesh. So his body, and basically the mystery of how Eve, the first thing that when matter was exposed, their bodies were exposed, the first thing, the false life, the counterfeit life, you could say, is that sense of procreation. And that's also the mystery here too, that the Spirit of Truth, who the world can't accept. So we're coming back, we're seeing what's behind this tunic of flesh and how it operates. So our thoughts, feelings, and actions get entangled into this wheel. But they're all based off the root of the head. So when man fell, he also fell with darkness. And his controller is, well, as the Bible calls it, Satan or evil. And if man doesn't follow God, see, God is outside of this wheel. And if he doesn't devote himself to hearing the correct letter of truth about life, the wheel, then he can't, there is no way for his thoughts, himself, who he is, which is actually invisible. You see, the Lord made man in his image and likeness, which is invisible, infinite, immortal, and eternal. That is what is behind the tunic of flesh, the one consciousness. So we're all from that one tree. That's why the tree, you could say, functions in this realm like the roots of the tree. We cannot see this eternal tree of God. All that men see are the roots of the tree. And this is the root of the tree, how it functions. And the controller of that root is just good, mundane good, passions, and ignorance. So that's also what our friend, the truth, teaches. is that we're to seek the kingdom of God. So we'll go to Matthew chapter 6. And the chapters in the Bhagavad Gita are all about these two things. So, seeking the kingdom. Don't pray. Well, so when you pray, go to your room, close your door, and pray to the Father in private. So I'm trying to read from Scripture here rather than just trying to say whatever I experienced, because it's basically the same thing. What I practice is sitting, a lot of sitting, and a lot of listening to a lot of nothing. Oh, why? Because remember, the mind, right? We're not engaged in our bodies. So if we're not thinking about our bodies, then what else is there to think about? See, that's what also the sages have to put their mind on something. And yes, the mind has to be situated into the invisible. So it cannot put its attention on something. And that's what not taking thought means. So searching more into this invisible. And that's what the substance of life is. Because it too operates on the invisible plane as well. Because God still made this earth empty, formless, nothingness, and void. That's why number 2 is depicted outside of this wheel. So when you start to pray, God will release you from the illusionary energy known as the tunic of flesh, and how the illusionary energy entangles the thoughts, feelings, and the actions, which are the true. See, the true nature of all beings is the mind, and the mind is intangible. So that's what the tunic of flesh covered, is the invisible substance of man. And what we're getting taught now is to go back into the invisible substance of man, but it also has to do with his thinking. You see, you also have to put your thoughts into the invisible as well. You also have to retreat into prayer. That's why he also tells us too in verse 25, I warn you, do not worry about your livelihood. So that's why does he warn us? I warn you. Don't take thought for the things of this wheel. Oh, because the master knows who's behind the wheel. But it's God's divine plan to see if we have faith and wisdom in his way. So if we can't follow his way, this is what he promises us. Verse 29, I assure you, not even Solomon with all of his splendor was arrayed like one of these who follow this way of not taking thought for their life. So even people like myself who have followed this way, we're going to be more blessed than Solomon has ever has in this life. That's the promise of, to the unbelievers, are always running after these things. See, the unbelievers are always chasing after the wheel, and they have their 3 stooges, their thoughts, feelings, and actions, entangled in hatred, envy, and jealousy. But to devotees of the Lord, our thoughts, feelings, and actions, our 3 stooges, are entangled in liberation. We're not in the wheel of life anymore. See, we're taking out. See this? We are taking out. Getting back into the kingdom of God. Verse 33. Seek first his kinship over you, so his righteousness, and seek the kingdom of God, and all of these things will be given to you besides. So that's exactly what this teaching is to get man out of his hot, fiery mind for attachment. You see, his attention. That's what the Buddha gave, his attachment to the flesh. And the tunic of flesh is actually the invisible. So who told you you're naked? That's also the mystery. So what's behind the tunic of flesh is the invisible one consciousness, devotional service to the Lord, which leads to the kingdom of God. So how do we get there? This is expert knowledge. The 3 modes of material nature, the Bhagavad Gita, given by our dear friend, the Spirit of Truth. See, if you don't read all these different Bibles, this is why I got in a tangent reading the Book of Mormon. Because if you don't read these other Bibles, then the Spirit of Truth won't make sense. Then the New Testimony, John 14, verse 17, it won't make any sense if you do not read these other books. So this is a total chapter on how the mind is on fire with the three modes of material nature here: good, passions, and ignorance. And this is exactly what Satan lured man into, exposed man, matter, so the tunic of flesh, over the one consciousness. So that's why the one consciousness always frees man from the illusion. That's why it's known as just a tunic of flesh. I don't call it the human body anymore. It's just a tunic of flesh. So the guy that asked me about aliens, it's just a tunic of flesh. And I know my true identity, which is God. So do I care about aliens? No. My true identity is the Lord, and the Lord has dominion over all. But the unconditioned, the contaminated consciousness, the mind on fire with other thoughts. See, there's other people inside of everyone's mind as well, when there should be only the one consciousness. See, seeking the one consciousness, seeking the kingdom of God, there should be only one person inside everybody's mind. It's themselves. Spiritual realization. And this is how we get out of the three modes of material nature. Chapter 14. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, our Spirit of Truth, again, I shall declare to you this supreme wisdom, the best of all knowledge, knowing which all sages have attained the supreme perfection. By becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to the transcendental nature like my own. So that's also what we're trying to do here, this transcendental position with God above this whole wheel entirely. That this is just for people interested in spiritual consciousness. So thus established, one is not born at the time of creation or disturbed at the time of dissolution. If you take upon this knowledge, you will not get interfered with the annihilation feature, because the Lord is above all such things. As it says there, the Lord is above all of these conceptual ways of living. So the total material substance called Brahman is the source of birth, and it is that Brahman that I impregnate and make possible the birth of all living beings, O son of Brahta. So through him, you could say, let's say if we're going to put this now in our refined knowledge, we could go to the Pistis Sophia mystery, the resurrection knowledge of Jesus Christ. This demiurge, the spirit beings, clothed man with a tunic of flesh. But you could say it was this one spiritual being. Even though it was in darkness, it was the progenitor of all mankind. So the demiurge, in a sense, is the progenitor of all mankind, because it created Adam from the dust of this dead earth. And it breathed its life into Adam. So you could say that Brahman could be known as the demiurge as well. But Brahman is a different substance, because it's more... He, in the transcendental literature, explains that the creator of these heavenly planets also is more pure. It's not like the demiurge, which is evil, or Satan. So there is a difference, but I want to put these things into perspective, because there is this one, as you can see, the one demiurge, or the spirit beings, that created mankind, or the progenitor of all beings, or all births. So we'll go to verse 4. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving Father. So that's another thing too. The tunic of flesh is just clothed behind the great I am. That's why everybody can say I am. And that's just simply knowing your true identity, is that name as well. But here's the way to know your true identity out of this material nature and into basically the Father. The material nature consists of three modes. So that's these eyes right here. And as you can see, the mind is on fire. Why? Because the contaminated consciousness, just a living entity, unenlightened, like my former self, I remember always thinking about my body, what I'm going to do in the gym. Oh yeah, the mind mentally concocting images of my body and this world. It's all an illusion of the material nature and the mind on fire, not knowing devotional service to God. The emptiness, nothingness. See, Genesis chapter 1. the true nature, the reality. See, that's bridging the gap now. What do you think is real? God's teaching us that the nature illusion, matter, it's all just an illusion. The only thing that's real is his Genesis chapter 1 and coming into contact with devotional service behind the tonic of flesh. So this is a dispensation of how good passion and ignorance work. And to the living entities, their minds are always on fire. They can never see. Getting to prayer takes a lot of work, because we're going to now quench those flames with transcendental knowledge. So when the living eternal being, so all living entities are eternal, but they don't know their true identity. That's the thing. They're covered. That's why it's known as the tunic of flesh or the material coverings. So they come into contact with the material nature. O mighty armed Arjuna, he becomes conditioned. See, that's why the tunic of flesh, people believe that they're human beings only because of by name. See, they're conditioned just to call whatever they see human beings. God doesn't call them that. He says the tunic of flesh is different, the material coverings. And if you eat that bread, if you take in those ideas, that'll quench the flame here, because human beings, that's just a word, a conditioned word. What you should now take into your mind is just to call the living forms, to call them first the living entities, and they have the tunic of flesh over them. So you don't know what is going on behind their mind. You don't know if that person's realized God. That's why they're just the living entities. And the living entities are usually having their minds set on fire with the fall of grace. So that's what goes on behind all of the unenlightened consciousness. Why? Because they're conditioned to call the form that they see a human being, when that's not the correct name. So that's another thing too of breaking into transcendental consciousness. So verse 6, O sinless one, the mode of goodness, being purer than the other modes, is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. So if you're in the mode of goodness, at least it frees you, that's what he's telling you, away from this wheel. Or from the reactions, the sinful reactions of the effects of the wheel, being in the mode of goodness. So those situated in that mode become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. So that's how you can tell if you're in the mode of goodness as well. So verse 7, the mode of passion is mode of unlimited desire and longings. So I know how those are too, being in the mind of fire. It's just the circle, and being in the passionate mode is not very good. But you could tell where your mind is and how to navigate yourself in the nature illusion. O son of Kunti, and because of this, the embodied living entity is bound to material fruitive actions. So what does that mean, being bound to fruitive actions? For me, it was going to the gym and expecting to, always keep off the 5 pounds, or to lose the 2 pounds, or to always expect results from doing those actions. That's what fruitive results mean. Going to your job every day and expecting the fruits. See, that's another thing I learned with God consciousness. The earth is the Lord's, and the fruits thereof. So that's what renunciation means, or renunciation. You can't look for the fruits of your labor anymore. That's also the hardcore way. And I realized that too when I was in the gym, especially with knowledge. I realized that I was gaining a certain measure of knowledge, and it wasn't by my own grace, because I was pretty dumb. I was getting a lot of help, and it was that good old spirit of truth. But either way, I was able to say, yeah, thank you for allowing me to perform my activity in the gym, allowing me not to break my neck today, or allowing me to try my hardest. That's also what I thank the Lord for. Thank you for allowing me to apply my knowledge and apply it to the best of my ability, because it isn't my doing it. It's you doing it. See, that's expecting fruits. And I was smart enough to know that in training, you're going to be dedicated for a very long time. And you might look a certain way for a very long time anyways. So you don't have to look towards the results of the fruits of that activity. And that will also settle the mind in prayer, getting one back into not taking thought anymore and just doing the duty, going to the gym and just performing to the best of your ability no matter what, because now you know the nature of the game. It's not just like in a few weeks you're going to change or expect results, because that's going to happen anyway if you apply yourself and just go. So that's why you don't have to really focus on the fruits of your actions, because if you just set them in motion, you're going to collect them anyways over time. That's what the material nature revealed as well too. That's why Matthew chapter 6 and not taking thought. Do you notice how the birds, they don't reap after the fruit of results? Because it's just going to happen in time anyways. So it also frees us more from not taking thought for our lives. Even if you're just in your normal job. You don't have to take thought to gain the paycheck because you're going to get it anyways. You just have to go to work. And if you realize that, that takes a whole load off of your mind. And if you just go to your duty, then you're going to expect, or it's going to happen anyways, just because you're engaged in that activity. But the whole point is the mind is on fire because people are looking for the fruits of their actions when the fruits belong to the Lord. So that's a huge revelation here in transcendental consciousness. O son of Brata, know that the modes of darkness, born of ignorance, is delusion of all embodied living beings. So that's an unfortunate truth. That everyone born, it doesn't matter if they're the good old-fashioned lady cooking up that hot American pie, all those Yankee Doodles, they think they're good. But every person, doesn't matter who they are, is born in this darkness and is deluded already. That's just the embodied state of all living entities. The results of this mode are madness, indolence, and sleep, which bind the conditioned soul. So that's all people. They've experienced depression, sleeping, and not wanting to wake up. That's because every living entity is in the mode of darkness, in the mode of passion, in the mode of good. So the fourth mode of liberation frees us, and it brings us into prayer and back into the invisible. And not only that, but not looking towards the fruits and the results of your activities. That also settles the mind. Because, again, be reasonable. Be logical. If you're engaged in your economic advancement or activity or job, if you just do your job, do your duty, on top of these principles of setting your mind free and not looking for the fruits of your results, then you could be situated more in the path of liberation and prayer and seeking the kingdom of God. And it's just that easy. So what we do now, people can have a big problem because they say, I like my mind, and keep thinking about the 500 people in there and arguing. People might like to argue with themselves all the time. So that's another thing too. This is the hardcore way. If you can't just find that one consciousness behind the tunic of flesh, then you're doomed in the three modes of material nature, looking for the results of your work. And that's what creates madness in all people. They're going to look for the results, but the results eventually belong in time, you see? In time, in the course of time, and everything in time belongs to the Supreme Lord anyways. That's another thing. All fruits come in time, and time is in the Lord's hands. So verse 9, O son of Brata, the mode of goodness conditions one to be happy, passions conditions one to fruit of action, and ignorance covers one's knowledge, and it binds one to madness. So I know a few people like that in real life too. I don't want to say his name, but that's just, the person covered in ignorance, doesn't know anything, and is bind to madness by now. So verse 10, sometimes the mode of goodness becomes prominent, defeating the other modes of passion and ignorance. O son of Brata, sometimes the mode of passion defeats goodness and ignorance. Now, why would passion defeat the other ones? Because people, I know this like myself, I was more interested in going to the gym and just receiving the fruits of my actions and not really caring about good behavior. And I wasn't going to be too ignorant because, it takes a lot of work to maintain the results of your efforts. So in the challenge of going to the gym, it was all about eating good, right? The correct foods, sleeping, and training properly. That's the pyramid. And being passionate about that, looking towards the results for that, it kept me away from ignorance. So it defeated the other mode. That's why at least the mode of passion defeats ignorance. And it also defeats goodness. Because when I was in the gym, I didn't care about saying hi. I didn't care about anything else but just the results of my labor. Now, that to me was the proper mentality, because while I was in the gym, I was given a certain amount of time, and I had to work within this time and then carry on the rest of my day. So it wasn't basically looking for the fruits of my actions. It was more like planting the seed and tilling the soil. But it's still in the mode of passion, and it defeats good behavior. That's the whole thing too. If you're just in this engagement just for tilling the soil and looking for the fruits of your results, it's still going to defeat some of the good qualities within you, some of the good characteristics, but it'll also defeat the ignorance as well. But you can see it's still in the fire of the mind. And in this way, we're trying to come out of the fire of the mind. So that the other times ignorance defeats good and passion. Yeah, ignorance can do that too. Like that's how you have the homeless, or that's how you have the super rich. They're both in the mode of ignorance, and it defeats their good qualities, and it also defeats the passion within them to actually do anything with their riches or do anything in their impoverished state. So that's how ignorance defeats both good in people and basically passion. In this way, there is always competition for supremacy. So the mind is always trying to battle in order to find itself, or in what mode it should run in. Should it run in my good behavior? It doesn't know if it's good behavior it's going to pay off. That's why people are just interested in their passions and their good work. Or not their good work, they're just interested in the paycheck, the fruits of their actions. So that's another thing. Like, this is going to open you up to how the psychology of the inner. See, this Satan figure, just imagine it's you at first. This is me, okay? The unenlightened, contaminated consciousness before it met God in 2022. Still mind on. It doesn't matter how much knowledge is in these two ear holes. Still on fire. Doesn't know God anyways. So that's the thing. People are like, oh, should my good behavior be prominent in my character? Because I'm very passionate about, my results here or my results there. And I know, see, people know in themselves the battle within themselves. That's why he even says here too, the battle for supremacy within themselves, of which mode's going to predominate. Or they're going to say, yeah, sure, I could be a good guy here, but I want the results of my passionate behavior anyways, so I can throw people under the bus. You understand? So some people might let their passions overcome their good, and obviously overcome their ignorance, but it's still in that mode, and that's what God says about competition for supremacy. And that's what a lot of people do in their own selves. They haven't learned to let go. So that's all of us as well too, haven't learned to let go in the invisible. As Brother Paul says, we don't seek the things of the visible, we seek the invisible. And then it extinguishes the fire of the mind. So the mind's always on fire because of the thoughts, the three stooges in the other panel. Thoughts, feelings, and actions. Oh, great, we could have both of them here. But either way, three stooges are running wild in hatred, envy, especially looking at other people. Oh, look at the other guy's muscles and his girl. Oh, yeah, but he doesn't realize that girl's got him enslaved. That's because guys are weak-minded these days, and all they have to is their enslavement just for their passions. And that's what they get after. If people do not practice Matthew chapter 7, see the devotional service to God, don't judge others at all. See, that's what he says too, Matthew chapter 7, verse 1, the first thing. Don't judge the meatheads and their quote-unquote good-looking girls. Because their good-looking girls got them whipped with that soft tissue in between their legs. And the big dummy is just dragged around like a donkey and a horse, whipped around with sense gratification. Just for that soft tissue over here. So that's why it tells you not to judge the outer world anyways. So the manifestation of the mode of good can be experienced when all the gates of the body are illumined by knowledge. Yeah, you have to be illumined by knowledge to experience the pure mode of goodness, or else you can't be in that mode. So verse 12. O chief of the Bharatas, when there is an increase in the mode of passion, the symptoms of great attachment. See, this is a passion now. This is why the mind is on fire. The three stooges, thoughts, feelings, and actions. Oh yes, they got them right attached to the body, and that mind of passion is right on fire here. So there's symptoms of great attachment. So that's what the Buddha taught, is to now focus on the invisible. That's why the master tells us not to take thought. There is no other persons in your mind, and not even you, the tunic of flesh. The Buddhist masters, see, the Zen philosophy, it's not the Zen philosophy. It's God telling them that that tunic of flesh was just an imagination of themselves. I'm the only reality. There's only one consciousness. See? That's also, too, great attachment. And if you have great attachment, that means you're just in the mode of passion. So you might be passionate about your wife, or you're passionate about your husband, but what's really going down there is the money in their pockets and the hard or soft tissue going on in between their legs. So that creates great attachment, and the mind is always on fire. Especially for the fruits of relationship. So going out to dinners, that's all pointless. And especially it's just looking for the fruits of the tree. And that's in the mode of passion. Intense endeavors. So when couples, they get the business running. I've seen that in Chef Ramsay a lot too. Just these brainless people, they're married, but they have no idea how to run a restaurant. They're not prior business owners in restaurants or establishments anyways. So they go in there and they try to pretend to be an owner of a restaurant. They don't know what the hell they're doing. Oh, intense endeavors. Intense endeavors indeed. Why? Oh, because the fools are hot-blooded in sense gratification. Because when they go home, the three stooges are running wild on them, brother. Oh, yes. Thoughts, feelings, and actions, because now they own a restaurant. Oh, they're just entangled or enslaved in some form of economic advancement, but the fools don't know how to run it. So they have to get Gordon Ramsay to yell at them, "Oh, you bloke! What are you doing here serving me this garbage?" Why? Because they're entangled in their passions. You know why, Mr. Ramsay? Because the three stooges are running wild in their heads. And all they care about is this over here. They don't care about their own business, their own restaurant. That's why Ramsay goes over there and he starts ramming a fist down their throat. "What you doing here serving me this garbage? I plop better crap between my arse holding what you fed me here." Oh yeah. You know why? Because the two people were just looking for fruitive results. They were just looking for money to come out of that business, like a cash register or a money change. And then because of their intense endeavors, they're expecting that to pay off. But Mr. Ramsay has to remind them, "You bloke, just remember when you cook me this garbage next time to clean out your bloody fridge." Uncontrollable desires that these people have as well, too, for each other. The three stooges are running wild with sense gratification. Oh, that devil's got that wheel spinning just over here, though, collecting the fruits. And over here. That's why the couples need to get yelled at and rammed. Because they always have this uncontrollable desire and hankering. Hankering for tam spankering. So that's a thing, too. When the restaurant owners are that dumb and they go home and they rub their genitals together, they don't think of how to make their business better. See, that's why I don't understand. Then they need Mr. Ramsay to do that because they're so hot-blooded in their intense, passionate desires. And they have not even grasped the meaning of God consciousness. You think those two people are practicing prayer? No, what most people do is they practice sense gratification towards each other. They get in intense endeavors with each other. So big houses, big cars, businesses that they can't run or afford, that they don't know how to. And then when they get experts coming in there, they yell at them. "Oh, why are you yelling at me? I thought I was doing things right. I thought I had a good bit." See, I thought. They thought, oh, see, white Mo? Oh, yes, you thought indeed. What did you think? No, you more thought about the greed, that money, the fruits coming in. Oh, yes, that's what the human being is more thinking about. Because his good old buddy Satan has got him riddled up in passions. Especially couples nowadays. With your power couples, What do you want? The fruits of what? What are you going to get? What are you going to get from this wheel? Come on down. You're the next spinner of conditioned consciousness. So what you going to get, fools? When you come together with your tunic of flesh, the three stooges are hot-blooded, full of envy, hatred, jealousy anyways, and lust. So you're going to rub your genitals together? What are you going to perform afterwards on the wheel? Oh yes, we'll just spin another sense gratification. More for it. Come on down. It just doesn't stop either. As you can see, there's 9 billion human beings, all bound up by the wheel of life. Come on down and spin. How much more do you want? What are you going to do now? Especially the couples nowadays that are so lost in sense gratification. Yeah, I know they're rubbing their genitals together, but what's with the big bit? What's with these big endeavors, bruh? I know why. Because of that passionate mind. Oh yes, they think they need everything big, bad, and whatever. Good. Remember, the Lord is the time feature, and He puts all things to an end, even good-looking flesh. So women right now, you might have the big busty boobs and the big busty bums, but remember, you still fart out of it. That's what the men don't understand. They'd rather stick their head up there anyways. And not only that, but the time feature is just going to destroy your looks. So that's why all women, if you haven't noticed, even Suzanne Summers trying to grasp and beat death, but it doesn't matter how much plastic surgeries you get. Just like a leaf of the tree, it all crumbles. That's why it tells you not to put so much emphasis on the three stooges and the tunic of flesh there. And put your three stooges up on God. So when there's an increase in the mode of ignorance, oh, darkness, inertia, madness, illusion. So people at home doing nothing, smoking cigarettes. Yep, they're all in the mode of darkness. Inertia, not doing anything. Madness. Oh, what are they thinking about? Who knows? I have no idea what people think. That's why they don't do any thinking. And they're three stooges. They already look like Larry. They don't have any will. They already look like the dead branch off the tree. Oh yes, because most people are after, you could say in their 50s and 60s, they're just in the mode of darkness, not doing nothing, mad, crazy, full of illusion. I don't know, like their thinking is messed up. You see, that's illusion. When you got like 20 people in your head, 30 different circumstances, life has just dragged you by under that wheel. Oh, that's all illusion, buddy. So verse 14, when one dies in the mode of good, he attains a pure higher plane of the great sages. When one dies in the mode of passion, he takes birth among those engaged in fruitive activities. And when one dies in the mode of ignorance, he takes birth in the animal kingdom. Oh, that's not fuck. The result of pious action is pure and is said to be in the mode of goodness. But action done in the mode of passion results in misery. Yes. Oh, all those big endeavors. See, the people that get together with their tunic of flesh and they get a big restaurant. And then Gordon Ramsay comes down there, "What you serving me this garbage?" And then it all resents in misery after. And then the one guys are like, "Why is Gordon Ramsay yelling at me?" See, they think they're all hot shots at first. "Oh yes, I'm a fancy business owner. I did this mass endeavor and I'm just looking for the fruitive results of my activities, you see." They think they're big crap, and their crap does not stink. But when the expert comes in, and then because of the mode of passion these fools are in, and Ramsey's like, "What's the matter with you?" Oh yes, these people start crying. Why you're so... Well, that's because they're passionate minds, you see. Mr. Ramsey knows, but he doesn't know the spiritual thing. Mr. Ramsey knows, but he can't quite put it. I can't put my bloody finger why these freaking idiots are always serving me garbage when I go into the restaurants. I can't quite put my finger on it. It's because I haven't read philosophy. But that's exactly it. I know these people are insane. I know they're in I know they're in the mode of passion because they're just looking for money. He even caught a few people. What, you just in it for money? You retarded? You go into this kitchen, it's all full of cockroaches and rat droppings on the ground, and you're just looking for money. How are you going to get any customers in the door when you can't even feed me? You see? Because people are in the mode of passion, stupid, and just looking for money. Oh, yes, Mr. Ramsey, it's true. so, so that's the thing. The actions performed in ignorance result in foolishness. So there's a lot of people there that look foolishness because they're in a business completely ignorant. You should see one of these two fat guys, these an Italian restaurant, the two fat twins. Oh my God, those guys are in the mode of ignorance. They fed Mr. Ramsey a 3 week old like chicken. He like almost died, and these guys were like, "Oh, sorry." Yeah, you are sorry. Those two individuals are in the mode of ignorance and darkness. You know why? Because Mr. Ramsey goes in there and just makes them look like fools. And that's what most people look like too when Mr. Ramsey starts going in there, because they're in the mode of darkness. He calls them out. How long you been a chef? Are you a chef? The guy's like, yeah, ignorance. Ignorance is all this world knows. That's why when you go outside, nobody can get anything done nowadays. Everyone seems like they're all, duh. It's because they're all friggin' ignorant, looking at their damn phones. And even their damn phones can't tell them what to do half the time, even though the knowledge is right there. They still, I don't know what. So here we go. 17. From the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. From the mode of passion, greed. Yep. And from the mode of ignorance develops foolishness, madness, and illusion. Thank you, sir. Those situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upward to higher planets. Those in the mode of passion live on the earthly planets. And those in the abominable mode of ignorance go down to the hellish worlds. Yes, so those fat twins and Gordon Ramsay, oh, they go right to hell. Why? Because they're just ignorant damn fools. Not only are they ignorant in the restaurant business, but those guys don't even practice God at all. You can see in their minds, there's no God that goes on in their minds. Those guys are just lazy, greedy, slothful. They wake up every morning, scratch their behinds, and eat food. That's all that's on their minds. There's no God consciousness, devotional service to hearing the word, reading books. That's why most human beings go to hell in the scriptures, in the revealed scriptures. See this place right here? Oh, it's more descriptive in the other wheel. Hell is the abode for most abominable human beings in the mode of ignorance. Why? Oh, that's why. Because there's no God in them at all. They don't practice nothing. And if you look at those two fools on Gordon Ramsay, you'll understand why there's hell on earth. 19. When one properly sees that in all activities, no other performer is at work, then these modes of nature, he knows the Supreme Lord, who is transcendental to all these modes, and he attains my spiritual nature. So when you basically see that there is no other performer, there's only one consciousness. That's verse 19 in a nutshell. There's only one consciousness. Devote your actions to just the one consciousness doing it, and everything you see is the activity of the one consciousness. Then he attains my spiritual nature. Enlightenment. It's very simple. Verse 20. When the embodied being is able to transcend these three modes associated with the material body, he becomes free from birth and death, old age, and their distress, and can enjoy the nectar even in this life. So that's one of the reasons, too, we devote ourselves to God. We could actually experience the Spirit and develop its fruits rather than being entangled in the three modes of material nature. Arjuna inquired, "O my dear Lord, by which symptom is one known who is transcendental to these three modes? What is his behavior, and how does he transcend the modes of nature?" So how does he do that, and what's his personality like? So the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "O son of Pandu, he who does not hate illumination, attachment, and delusion, when they're present or long, for them when they disappear, who is unwavering and who is undisturbed through all these reactions of the material qualities, remaining neutral and transcendental, knowing that the modes alone are active, who is situated in the self, and regards alike happiness and distress, who looks upon a lump of earth, a stone, and a piece of gold, all with equal eye, who is equal toward the desirable and the undesirable, who is steady, situated equally well in praise and blame, honor and dishonor, who treats alike both friend and enemy, and who has renounced all material activities. Such a person is said to have transcended the modes of nature. So that's very difficult to understand a little bit. You have to basically, in let's say a bad situation in life, you still have to, like Matthew chapter 5, still have your sun shine on the saints and the sinners, even though you're having a bad day. That's why you can't really get attached to happiness or distress. So that's what he says here too. The one who regards the same happiness and distress is in the mode of prayer. And that's very difficult to overcome, because you still have to give out yourself, and you still have to follow the way no matter what distress you're in. So even in Daniel, in the lion's den, he still has to perform the activities of God, and that gives him, or transcends him, out of the modes of material nature. So even in happiness and distress, see, that's very distressful, being in the lion's den. Even in our lives, out of these states of duality, we still have to practice coming back home to God, realizing the one consciousness. So he who does that, who rises above duality in that sense, at least to its tolerable degree. Now, I know some certain situations are going to be very extreme. You know, they might call for you to have a lot of faith and tolerance towards somebody, towards yourself, or towards a circumstance. And if you do that, see, in these undesirable circumstances, you have to practice patience. You have to practice humility, tolerance. Now, even in a desirable situation, let's say if you won the lottery, you still have to practice. That's even more. Why? Because a lot of people lose their money, because now they have a desirable situation and they can't practice equality, remaining neutral. Another thing too is very important. In these states of duality that we find ourselves in, we always have to situate ourselves in number 2, which is not to take thought for the tunic of flesh. And that will lead one into the apprehension of God consciousness. So one who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature, and thus becomes the level of Brahman. So you become level of number 2 there, the wise man, the one consciousness, or the spiritual substance. That's if you engage in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances. It doesn't matter if you're happy or sad. You still have to engage fully in prayer and devotional service. So, and that I am the basis of this impersonal Brahman. So God, as he says here too, the impersonal Brahman, as it's called, the emptiness, formless, and the void. God is the basis of that as well, which is immortal. So that's what Lao Tzu, you say, came into contact with the impersonal one, or the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal. That's what we're looking to come into contact with, the one consciousness behind the tunic of flesh. And this is how you transcend, you could say, the tunic of flesh within you. So this is the position that we must obtain, is that basically what Lao Tzu, or the word Jesus Christ, when those that lose themselves for my sake discover who they are, or bring themselves to nothing discover who they are for me. That discovery is that imperishable, eternal, immortal substance. So that's number 2. That's what we're after. That's why we follow the way. There's only one way to do it, and that is by I am. See, that's John chapter 10, the doorway. So remember, he says I am. That's the name of God that he gave to Moses. That's why the Old and the New Testament is the promise of I am, especially the enlightenment, God consciousness, the kingdom, and the judgment day of the Lord. So that's another thing too. Truly, I assure you, whoever does not enter the sheepfold through the gate, but climbs in some other way, is a thief and a marauder. So that's another thing too, God consciousness. You can't get it through other philosophies, other ideas, other people. Now only the word Jesus Christ is the way back home. So thank you guys for tuning in. I had a lot of fun doing this dispensation. I'm glad I brought these books. Do a lot of reading and a lot of lecturing. So thank you guys for tuning in, and take care.